Is that better? Can you hear now?
I don't know.
Can anyone hear us? I just want to check and make sure that this is cool. If you can just put it in the chat somewhere.
Oh, it's hot back here today.
It is hot. Unmute mic.
Oh, you can hear us. Everybody said they can hear us. Great.
Okay.
I love tech.
Yes. Is that?
I
Let me know. Does that still sound
fixed.
right? All right, we're cool.
Yeah,
cool.
everybody
Right.
says it's good.
So because of that, and because this turns into a podcast, I'm just going to start from the top if y'all are ready. So, action. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Sunday Night Teacher Talk.
Take two.
And take two, because we have this different background, because we are doing this because we're at the last night of the back to school boot camp, which started on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So start on Thursday. So we've been ripping through. It's supposed to be 45 minutes a night. I'm keeping these folks on for like an hour plus every night. And then we do Q&A if you're in the VIP. So rather than switch everything around, we've just decided that for our own sanity, because as soon as we're done this around 5, at 7 we go on for that, and that thing runs till about 9 o'clock at night. So
we gotta keep it in one.
So
one look.
Just before we get started, right? I think that it's so funny to me sometimes. Folks will find me on Instagram and they're like, "Oh, you have Instagram?" Or, "Wait, I didn't realize how many videos you have out." I don't know if you noticed this, but we have, I think this is our 599th video we will have on
I know we were getting close.
YouTube. We have almost 600 videos, which averages out to about 100 videos a year that we've created for educators, except for that one video that I made about how to make a concrete pot, because it was my first experiment video and I'm never taking it down. It's also in our top 10 ranking videos of all time. But we're trying to create space here for teachers to become the teachers that they always wanted to be. And so whether that is through our Facebook group, so if you go onto Facebook to Real Rap with Reynolds Teacher Talk, whether that is, you know, yeah, I know, it's really funny. Whether it's the website that we're hidden behind, whether it's Teacher Class Off Radio, which is our podcast, and that's going to come out with all kinds of new stuff this year, whether it is my book, whether it's the boot camp, whether it's like social media, it's the thing is, how much can we share to help folks that need it? And so tonight is about both of us. It's about us sharing maybe some of the things that we know about the classroom, but also when you're in the comments, you're not just in the comments. You'll see it every week. There's people in there helping other folks out. There are people that are connecting out there. Hopefully one day there's going to be people that are getting married out there, and I want to officiate your wedding. And I just make it weird. Yes, but I love this idea. And so this is where we're going with. So if you have a question tonight, just put a Q or the word question before it. Just helps it. My wife figured that out when she's going through it. And with that,
ready to start? I have a question. Mallory is up first, and she is asking, feels like every year the first week back gets harder and more exhausting. I went to bed at 7:30 almost every night last week. What things do you do to keep your energy levels up through the school year after being off a whole summer?
So I think one, I like to manage my expectations. Right. So part of it is, look how horrible that looks.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know what's up with that. Sorry, this looks like we're on VHS right now, but.
And they're the same cameras?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out later because Mallory Garrett's question is more important than that right now. So looks good on yours. Looks terrible on mine. Anyway, Mallory, I think part of it is managing my expectations. It's knowing that I'm going to be tired. I wouldn't run a marathon and then the next day figure out I'm going to go take my kids out to Disney World, or we're all going to stay up late and watch a movie. Right. So, and teaching's like that. You've been running casual runs all summer. You know, you still have to get up. You still have things to do. You have a little one. At least in one picture, you might have many little ones. I'm not really sure, but you're still going for it. You're still doing laundry and cleaning the house and all the things. But when you run a marathon, you have to be ready and planned for that week. So one of the things that we do is, I know when I started teaching, we would plan mini fun after school. So we used to do this. I don't know if you remember this. Every year after I got done teaching on my first day, we would go grab dinner at this place that made these chicken Parmesan sandwiches. And chicken Parmesan sandwiches in South Philly are all world. And they were they would put you into a food coma. So I knew that I was going to fall asleep by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock every night. And I planned for it. I came home at a regular time. I lived this exciting few days in school. And then at night I would come home and have this dinner and have a plan. And then I knew that Saturday and Sunday I didn't want to do anything. So that was in the beginning of the year, was managing expectations and planning, not for the worst, but for reality. The other things that I do to kind of keep my energy up during the year is, there's a lot to that. And this is part of what we're talking about in the boot camp tonight. But a snippet of that is, I'll tell you one I don't talk about very often. Last year I went and got a full blood work done, more blood work than I've ever had done in my life. So if you go to a regular doctor and you have to get blood work done, they take I don't know, what do they take? A vial of blood, something like that?
Maybe 2, 3,
Yeah.
4,
What did we get done last
15,
year? 15
each
vials
of
of blood. I thought this man was low-key a vampire. I wasn't really sure. So we got this full extensive workup done, found all these deficiencies. And then I was giving myself vitamin B shots during the week. I was seriously deficient on vitamin D, which has a lot to do with your energy levels. And so just even going to the doctor and kind of getting a medical checkup and finding out, are there places that my biomechanics are not where they're supposed to be? And then that wins. The other thing I switched last year when I was in my 20s, I had this belief that you only needed 4 hours of sleep a night. And maybe that's true, because I'm pretty sure I didn't sleep very much more than that in my 20s, at least. Now that I'm 46, I need a solid 7.5 hours a night, sometimes 8, or I cannot function on all cylinders. So it is. And what I found out was, and I heard someone explain it this way, when you need that, but you're staying up too late, you're letting today steal from tomorrow. And so just those 2 things alone shifted things. Now, the other 2 really quick things I do is I have a very strict morning routine, which we were just talking about today. I need to make a new video because my old morning routine video is not even remotely what I do anymore. I have a very strict morning routine that's going to set me up for success during my day. And then I try to eat well at least 3/4 of my day. Look, I'm from Philly. Like, do I eat a tasty cake at night or some ice cream or whatever else, other junk food? Yes, I do. But the beginning of the first 3/4 of my day is like pretty solid, clean eating, especially when I'm teaching, because there's no snacks around. I only keep healthy stuff in my classroom. And so those few things have a drastic effect on my mental health, my physical health, and my emotional health. And that's what helps me to like be on fire throughout the year when other people are just burning down around me.
All right. Jennifer is up next.
This is extremely uncomfortable.
Well, why don't you move my way?
This is a curious new.
We really need to do. I need to fix this.
Yeah, I can help you with that.
We really need to do a video tour of like where this whole room that we're in, because I think y'all would have no clue what it actually looks like. It is a shoebox.
You get like this. Oh.
It looks so different on camera.
It looks so spacious.
Yeah, it's a thing.
No, if there was a fire right now, we'd have a problem.
Yeah. All of this would fall as we just push it all out of the way. There's no getting
Next
around.
question. Here we go.
Okay. Jennifer is up next asking, is it okay to take a less challenging teaching assignment this year? I am feeling slightly guilty because I'm skilled in another subject.
Oh, yes. So here's the thing, Jennifer. I think too many teachers sign up for too many things. And so be mindful of that. Don't sign up for more than your capacity. So even if you all are not in Jennifer's situation, you can remember that. I like to think of it like this.
Wait, there's a second part.
Oh, please go ahead.
My bad. I just saw it. It's, saying, I don't know whether I need to was right. Same. That's the same. I don't know whether I need to remind them. They need someone in the other subject as well. It's my wheelhouse and I'm good at the easier one too. We will see.
Okay. So, I mean, it's still my same answer. Yeah. So I'm going to say it like, let me see. Let's see. Let's see if this little example works. I'm not sure. I'm just making it up as I go along. But I have random crap around me. So let's say this is your day. This is everything that could be done, right? But this AirPod case is your capacity. So no matter where you move it, something's going to get. So if this side is let's say it's your family, all your stuff is on here, your family, your school, all that stuff. If you have this is a terrible idea. What I'm saying here is that you only have so much capacity. Now, if you want to teach 5 classes, great. And if it's easier classes, great. That's going to give you more capacity in other areas. Maybe it's your family, your friends, yourself. Maybe it's helping other teachers that are struggling in their classes. Maybe it's helping students that are struggling in their classes. So just because the teaching assignment seems, as you said, easier, is going to allow you to have the capacity to do more things. When we pick up a 6th class, sometimes people have 7 classes, your capacity is diminished in other areas. So for me, one of my things is I decided this several years ago because I found that like I didn't have as much energy. I was coming home and playing like tired dad games with my kids. And I wanted to be able to give as much to my own children as I was giving to other people's children. And so when this became important to me, when I realized that I was not giving equal amounts, I realized that I had to diminish my capacity at school and increase my capacity at home. but there's only so much capacity. So that I couldn't stay at school till 6 and 7 o'clock at night, come home and play tired dad games with my kids right before they went to bed. I wanted to start leaving at like school was done at, let's say it was done at 3. I was out by 3:30, coming home, getting home by closer to 4 and having many hours together with my children. And so that is, when you think that something's just easier and you're feeling guilty, don't, because it's going to increase your capacity to give in other areas. Or even if it's just increasing your capacity to give to those classes and make those classes awesome, then that's cool too. There is a thing that teachers do. I'm not saying you're doing this, but it's something for everyone to be mindful of. There is is like a fetishizing. I can't even say that word right. Fetish side. People, there's a fetish that teachers have where they love this idea of like, who's the most tired? My gosh, I'm so tired. I've just been I've been grading all the time. I'm giving my all to these kids. I've been staying late. I've been staying till after the sun sets every night. I'm the last one out of the building every day. I'm the first one in the building every day. And that's, dude, if that's your jam and you're first in, last out, it's awesome. But only if it makes you feel great. If you don't feel great about that, then you're being led around by someone else. So I have been the first in the building, last out of the building person for many, many years. I've been the person that picked up the extra classes and did all the extra stuff, ran myself ragged. But I think that for me, that's like a first year teacher game. That is, if you are an established teacher, you should not be running yourself ragged. You should get better at what you're doing. And look, new teachers, sometimes you're going to be tired. You're going to feel like thin. As Bilbo Baggins says, like butter scraped over too much bread. But it is, but like as you get better at what you're doing, you should get better. Your first marathon should crush you, right? You should be tired at the end of it. But if you run many, many, many marathons, those are the folks that aren't crawling over the finish line. They're the folks that finish and they're like, oh man, like they can just still go to IHOP afterwards or wherever the heck you go after a marathon. So yeah, so don't feel guilty. Rock that thing. Let it be awesome.
All right. Our next question comes from Summer. She's asking, teaching in Texas is getting crazy stressful with new laws and the heat is insane. 112 today. My husband and I are thinking of moving to PA. How's teaching there and the cost of living?
This is a great question. So, this is fascinating. I would say the cost of living here is insane. But I'm in New Jersey. Philadelphia is very, very expensive. Pennsylvania, not as bad, right? So, but you're gonna have to move. Like, there's really beautiful places like out in like York, PA. There's like Letter Classroom lives out there, and like where she lives is like bonkers beautiful. So there's like there's really great spots out there. But I will say that I feel like the cost of living for food and things of that nature is much more expensive. Like her mom lives in New Mexico. So don't say the town because it's too small, but it's like eastern New Mexico, right on the Texas border. And her cost of living is mind-blowingly less than ours.
So PA in comparison to New Jersey is lower. New Jersey is incredibly high. PA is lower, but I still think like your groceries is still going to be higher than it would be out in like New Mexico where my mom lives, stuff like that. But in comparison to like homes, I do think, but the more land you go, like I guess it's Western Pennsylvania, I think like that, you're going to pay more because you have more space. So the cost, it's all relative, but
because you'll make more money. I mean, but I would say, and let me know if you would argue this, if you're a teacher in Philadelphia and you're making between $70,000 to $90,000 a year, you're still living paycheck to paycheck. If you're single income, you are still living paycheck to paycheck in that. And so,
which seems crazy.
It seems wild. Like when I remember one time I told folks that my first year teaching in Camden, New Jersey, I made $31,000 a year. And I got an email from someone from Oklahoma was that like, dude, I wish I made that much money. That would be incredible. And so it's relative to kind of where you are, but
I did see, she said like they were looking for somewhere that had 4 seasons. You'll get 4 seasons in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's
and
greener. There's like all kinds of upticks.
I don't know if you get, I don't know, do you get snow? Like I feel like snow is something that's been dwindling even here, even though we get 4 seasons. I don't know if it's global warming or what it is, but that one's dwindling, but you'll at least get fall and spring.
I just realized I was looking at the wrong camera.
I'm sorry.
So everyone's going to be like, why is Reynolds? Who's he looking at over there? He's talking to his kids. Like, what's going on? Go ahead.
Okay. Our next question comes from Jocko asking, I'm an introvert, meaning I get energy from being alone. My energy gets depleted when I'm around people. Needless to say, after a school day, I'm exhausted. I love my job, but any tips?
Yeah. So that's a great question. First of all, why does Jocko have like the most handsome profile picture you've ever seen?
I know, right?
So anyway, I just noticed it. But, so I would say, man, that it's knowing who you are and then knowing what you need. So here's one of the things. This is another thing we're doing at the boot camp tonight. So I don't want to let all the cats out of the bag for the boot camp folks, but like, because I really am excited to talk about this stuff at length. But in my life, I have a value system, and in that value system, there are 7 to 8 things. I think off the top of my head, it is for me, it's God, then it's me, then it's my family, wife, then kids. Then it's, gosh, what the heck was it? But it's my health, right? So like mental, physical, and emotional health. Then it's my work, and then on and on and on and on. So when I did this, this is a mentor walking me through this practice. When I did this, I had to then say like, well, if God is my number one thing, what am I doing in my life that supports that ideal? What am I doing in my life to support the idea that my wife and my family come first? And the reason, my wife is first over my kids is my wife does not benefit from an overflow of love that I have for my kids. It just doesn't happen. But my kids absolutely benefit from an overflow of love that I have for my wife. So when we're on the same page, when we're vibing, then my kids just live a better existence. But if we are not getting along, my kids live a less than ideal existence. And so that is super important to me. So then what does me being important look like in my week, in my day, in my year? What is my wife and I's relationship? What are things that we do to keep this relationship healthy? And so if you are someone that so if you're introverted, if you need energy from being alone, it's literally becoming a master of your calendar, writing down the things that fill you up, that invigorate you, and then putting them on the calendar. Don't just get to them when you can get to them, but it's, I need to leave school by this time every day. I need to go to bed by this time every night. I need to have, what are the things that you're doing when you're alone that fill you back up, right? Not just things that help you to rest, although that's important, because look, sometimes, a drink with a friend or just laying on the couch and watching Netflix, that helps. But like, what are things that are going to reinvigorate you, right? We're not just trying to keep the flames going with what's in fire already, like what's pouring gasoline on that. So thinking about that for you, that brings you joy. So for me, some of those things are that make me keep me balanced, right? I'm wildly extroverted, is making sure that I go out with friends on Fridays. It's going out with my wife every Friday night, and we go out to somewhere social that we can hang out with people. It is planning. It's like planning things for myself, like going to the gym, right? I don't work out. I could do my workout alone at home, especially the workout that I've been doing lately. But I like going to the gym. I like being around people. I like the energy of all of that. So it's looking at those things that are going to fill you up, that are going to make you excited, and rejuvenate you so that you can go back to work. But it's absolutely putting them on the calendar. You can't just go, well, I'll do it one day this week. If you make it Wednesday is the day you do the thing, what happens is you end up building rhythms in your life, where then once you build the rhythm, it's like, it's harder to break and it's easier to make something a habit.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Sorry for my
Thanks for
delayed response. Okay. Kelson is up next asking, hey there, question. Do you have any non-corny icebreakers for high school freshmen on a first day of school? Something that fits into about 20 minutes.
So I don't. And here's why. I don't do icebreakers because part of it is because I find that it is difficult for introverted kids. So like young jockos of the world, I just see that they hate it. There's not an easy way to ease them in. And I don't want to make them go out on the dance floor and dance when they don't want to dance. When they're like, I feel I'm enjoying myself standing against the wall, drinking punch, and I'm good with that. So that's why I don't do it. But I know that my idea is not the only good idea. So I'm going to throw this one out to y'all that are talking to one another in the comment section. What is a good icebreaker that you have? Or could you reach out to Kelson and like send him an email or a Facebook message or something that is going to help him out? Because I think that they can be really great. There's tons of group activities I do during the year, but in the beginning of the year, let me explain my scenario. I teach 9th grade English. It was, and at a charter school in West Philadelphia, which means that kids from all over the city came there. So there were kids that came from our middle school that only made up about 50% of the students that were in my class. The other 50% of the students likely didn't know anyone else, didn't know the building, didn't know the neighborhood. And so this was so new to them that I didn't want to exacerbate kids' anxiety on the first day. So that's why I don't do things like that. But I'm certain that other people do. So I would love if anyone could find Kelson on there, or just put Kelson first and then say, I have an idea, I'll email it to you, or here's my idea in the comment section. That would be really wonderful.
So my question would be to you. So what do you do on the first day of school that builds that community? Or
we arm wrestle.
Stop it.
No, I just made that up. So first day of school is more about me. So I make it super like palatable for all students. One, I'm telling you how much I love teaching. I'm telling you how much I love this class. I'm telling you how glad I am that you're here. And I'm telling you that you won the lottery because I will care for you. And I'm trying to make this the greatest class of your year, even if you hate English. And even if you hate it, I'm telling you it's going to suck less than you think it's going to. The next thing I do is have kids write themselves a letter, because it's a thing that you can do that's quiet, that's just in front of you, and that you don't have. So these are letters that I kids write to themselves, and I give them back at graduation. This is a thing that lets you be quiet in the classroom, lets you be in the space, lets you see how things vibe. And it's not this like overextending of you in the whole day. Second day, I talk about how great the year is going to be again. But this time I go over the syllabus and I show pictures of things that we're going to do this year and talk more in depth about activities and stuff like that. And then I introduce the life map.
I was going to say, that's the Life Odyssey?
The Life Odyssey. Yeah, the Life Odyssey. So then I give my Life Odyssey that day, if we have enough time. Then the third day, we start working on Life Odysseys. That's going to be the first thing that kids present in class and share. And then that's a jump off point.
And I think that is what is the key. That's the key in your classroom that builds community, right? Because you get to learn so much about each other, like in a fast tracked,
insane amount of stuff in a very short.
So I think you skip icebreakers because you do that project, which still.
Yes.
Kind of gives same.
It still breaks the ice.
Yeah.
And helps kids connect. Because if you don't know, and this is going to be a free resource that's coming out soon. And if you were in our boot camp, it was absolutely a part of what we were doing. The Life Odyssey is 10 moments between birth and now that made you into the human being that you are today. Right. So kids create a very simple Google slide. I create my own. I share it with them, and then kids present. And you will know more about your students than anybody else in the building, hands down. Someone could have taught those kids 4 times already. You're going to know more about them if you do this.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little over exaggeration, but don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's not true. I think it's an awesome activity. Okay.
Thank you.
Key's teacher is asking, how do you handle sharing / not sharing your personal life with your students, with the students? I teach high school and they ask a lot of personal questions.
I decide what's relevant. So I do share a lot. But in what I share, what I want kids to do is be seen a lot of times. And so I share struggles because, you know, if you don't share anything, kids just think that like you live at school and like for fun, you grade. And like, you know, if you're a music teacher, I'm assuming you just play piano all the time. That's all you do. You don't really leave the house or go anywhere. You don't have any friends, never had your heart broken. You're not married. You don't have kids. You don't have any hobbies. You don't go to Target. Like but I find when I share with my students things that I do, it makes me more of a real person. And so my kids, and part of this is the Life Odyssey, right? So in the Life Odyssey, I tell the students like, you know, the first thing I tell them is that I was born, when I was born and what my birthday is. And they think that's like the oldest thing. I had a kid a couple of years ago. I was born in 1976. And this kid goes, wait a minute. Isn't that when the Declaration of Independence was written? No, you just failed for the year, by the way. It's not when the Declaration, that was 200 years before. I was born on the bicentennial 200th birthday of our great country. And so but then the next thing I tell them is that my dad died from a brain tumor when he was 29. I was 4 years old. And so what I want kids to know is that I didn't like, you can look at me and think of how happy I am or excited or silly or like whatever, possibly annoying, but I am trying to become human to my students, because when you share stuff with your kids, they will then share stuff with you. And when kids share stuff with you, you're going to get two byproducts out of this. This isn't just about being nosy or gossipy or like, you know, whatever. This is about finding out what's going on in your students' lives so that you can help meet those needs. And if you can't meet those needs, you can get them connected with someone in the building that can meet those needs. Because if a student's suffering from depression or trauma or anything else, they're in Maslow's hierarchy, they're not getting those base needs met. So they're never going to get to a higher place. The second thing you're doing is learning more about your students. And when we become students of our students, when we learn what our kids like, we can then turn that into things that we can connect to our lessons and create things that are engaging and that are relevant to our students. So I think sharing what you're have going on is incredibly important. Now, look, you want to be careful because there are some people that overshare. There are people that talk about, you know, my girlfriend's driving me nuts, man. Or like my wife, you know, she's crazy. Like she's so crazy all the time. And what I want to do is share things that I think are either useful and helpful and show me as a vulnerable human being, or things that talk about how great life can be. Like I want my students to have great lives, not just great jobs and great test scores. I want you to live a life that you imagine it could be. And I feel like I should be an example of that, right? And so I want to share with my students what I do with my kids, what I do, what my wife and I, it's Friday night, y'all, you know, it's date night. Like we're going to our favorite spot, Max's, and getting oysters or whatever we're doing. And it's talking about those things too, just makes you come alive.
I have a question for you, like a follow-up on that.
Please.
What do you do if, I imagine high school students as a teacher, if you're not married, whether male or female, will ask things like, what's your sexual orientation? Like, are you gay? Are you married? Are you like, because that's such a nosy question and such a like a hot topic anymore. Like people want to know that. How would you answer that? Like if you're not married, right? It's clear you have a wife, you have a wedding ring on, like those sort of things. They're going to see all that. But if you don't have a wedding ring on and you're not married,
well, just because I have a wedding ring on doesn't mean I'm married to my wife. But I choose not to share that stuff because I don't. To me, and look, this is a personal choice because look, if I was struggling with my identity and someone could help me navigate that space, right? Like, I don't know. That might be a different conversation. However, we want to be careful because, you know, I'm also not trying to get kids to buy into what my belief systems are, right? Like,
but so, that to me seems really personal that seems like a question that a high school student would ask somebody, but it seems really personal to me.
Yeah.
That one would trip me up if I was a teacher.
I don't think I would talk about that at all. But that's a me choice. And so,
because I really put you on the spot.
Yeah. Well, no, I think this is a really important question. And it's definitely something I've had conversations with students about that are older. But it's like, what I do is I relate my life when a student is going through something. I love to find a place that's a connection point for me. And so if I have advice, first of all, I believe that your attention's far more important than your advice. So just like, It's like when you go to therapy, the therapist doesn't talk the whole time. They talk like 10% of the time tops, right? And although I'm not a therapist, I try to activate that same thing and create a safe space for kids to talk about who they are and what they're going through. But if I have a connection point that I think is going to help unlock something for a student or make them feel like they're not alone, I will share that. But to me, sexuality is like, I don't know that I'd really have to think about it. I don't know that I've ever like had a moment where that seemed relevant. That seemed like something that I would have to share or need to share or was going to help a kid out. But I don't know. But if you're a part of like the Gay Straight Alliance or something like that, maybe those things come up in those spaces, but it's also something that you want to be careful about because look, I just know that kids, you don't want to make it so that you're open to something, right? Like kids they start getting googly eyes for you and stuff like that. And it's like when you start talking about certain topics, I just don't want to open the door to anything that would be.
I think I'm asking more in a way, not like if you have a connection with a student and they're like confiding in you and then that there's a potential for like helping them there, but more of just students are nosy and they're just going to ask you all kinds of random crap on the first day of school or in the first week of school.
Yeah, no.
You would just deny.
No, because I'll tell you this. I wouldn't do that with a friend. Like, I wouldn't go to a Bible study and tell anyone that, right? Like, I wouldn't like first day. It's like, yo, let's jump in. What are y'all into? Tell me your most close and personal, like, secrets as a human being, or be as vulnerable as possible. To me, in my life, y'all gotta earn that. I keep my circle tight and I share things with my circle, but I don't just share that information with anyone because it's important, right? That's in my vault. And so just no one gets the key to my vault unless I give it to you.
Yeah.
And I want to be careful who I share that with. And so with regards to that, that's kind of how I'm thinking about that.
Just ask him.
That's a way big conversation right there.
I know. Sorry, I really I jumped in on that one.
I hope that helps somebody.
Okay. Robert is asking, hey Reynolds, have you discovered any new cool apps for teachers to use?
So this is another tricky one for me, Robert, because I am at I've only ever taught at like such analog schools that until I didn't have a smart board ever. First of all, I didn't even have a projector back in the day. I used to put my slides on giant pieces of like poster board paper with fat crayon, and that's how I would have slides. Then I got a projector. Then I never had a smart board until I got my own. Until I did a brand deal with Samsung, and then I got a smart board to bring in my classroom. So I think it was the first one I had.
No, it wasn't. You had a Promethean board like the year before, or maybe 2 years before, but with no training. So nobody knew how to use them in the school. And nobody used them, even though they had a bunch
of them. The school did they made the purchase for Promethean boards. That's a whole nother story on how I kind of snuck one into my classroom. But they didn't want to spring for the training. So no one knew how to use a Promethean board, and there weren't any videos online. So we were all kind of screwed. So anyway, so I have been so analog, and my classes until like my last year, I think it was my last year as an educator in the classroom, we were not one-to-one. So it was like, and when you get when you teach in tricky school, look, I'm going to tell you like this, when you teach in a lot of times Title I schools, they have like one cart for the computers, and when you get them to come to your room, they're missing like half the keys and stuff like that, or they're not charged or whatever. So it's not even worth getting it. So it's like, so I just have stayed away from that stuff. But this is another question I'm going to throw to the audience or to the community here in the chat. What are y'all using? Like, what's a great new app that not everyone's on to, because we all know that when something gets too popular, everybody starts using it. And it went from like Kahoot was like the jam and everyone loved it and kids were all excited when you did it. And now they're like, another Kahoot, come on, Reynolds, like, why are we doing this? So I'm curious what people are using now. I used a lot of stuff during COVID because I had to, because it was the only way to kind of do it because I was teaching virtually. But yeah, I'm curious what people are saying.
Padlet,
yeah, Padlet, yep.
Gimkit. Quizzes with new enhancements, Quizlet, which some of those.
I do, and vocabulary, all that stuff. But those are ones. Even some of those, I'd say this, Robert. I try and find new ways to use them. So when we do Kahoot, I try and find new ways to use Kahoot. Like, I don't use Kahoot music. I think it's the worst music in the world. So instead, I like play my own music behind Kahoot. And I just do a bunch of
somebody said
Blookit,
Magic
Nearpod,
School AI.
Yep.
What's Magic School AI?
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I don't even know anything about that one.
We need to find that one out. So cool. So just keep putting them in there, Robert. You can grab all those, and then there you have it, buddy.
All right. Travis is up next asking, I'm a few years out of college and still haven't found a teaching job, high school social studies in Illinois. I've been working as a para. I'm happy to be working in education, but would like to teach. That's
a great question. So Travis, I think, unfortunately, social studies and English teachers were a dime a dozen, right? There's a million folks that have that. I would say having your foot in the door as a para is really incredibly important, especially if that's a school you could see yourself being at. I think Steve Martin had it right. Steve Martin, the comedian, someone asked him, like, what's your secret? Like, what can someone do if they want to be discovered in comedy? And his answer was, be so good that they can't ignore you. And so if I'm a para and I'm in a school, I am trying to connect with all the people that I can. Connect with teachers, connect with administrators, connect with students, connect with their parents, become an undeniable resource to the school. So am I donating my time? Am I showing up and going the extra mile? Am I helping kids out? Am I getting results? So some of that is going to be not just looking at your pedagogy, but looking at your personality. Am I becoming, who do I need to become to be the person that they would hire? So thinking about, what do they need in the school? Who would they hire? What are the personality traits? What's the work ethic? Who is that person? And then filling in the gaps and growing into the person I need to be hired by a school. And I heard this a few years ago. I got this idea, like this idea was kind of solidified for me, but someone used it a different way. I was listening to a podcast and this guy was talking about the fact that, like, he wanted to get married one day, but then when he looked at his life, he's like, my life didn't look like a life that anyone would want to marry into. Like, I had super irregular hours. My house looked like a bachelor pad. My car was like a bachelor's car. Like, I just didn't live a life that someone would look at me and go, oh, this is someone I want to marry. So instead, what they did was they started designing their life to be this thing that was something that's like, it was a life that felt good to them also, but would be attractive to someone. So like, they started preparing their house. Like, I'm going to live here with someone one day. It was preparing, like, getting their hours in such a way where it's like, I don't stay up till 4:00 in the morning and wake up at 1 in the afternoon. I'm going to have this life where, like, I can live with someone. And then when you start doing those things, I think that you start growing into that person. And if you can do that while helping and serving other people, being the best version of yourself, you become undeniable. You become so good that they can't ignore you. So it's like, how do you become the best social studies teacher? So like, I'd be like thinking about those lessons now, those lesson plans now. How am I connecting with parents? How am I finding every student? So like, whether it's like workshops that we put on or something someone else does, it's going to the workshops, going to the trainings, reading all of the books, becoming the person you need to be to do the work, to be the best teacher ever. And then when you get the job, right, you will be ready for the opportunity. And so because you planned behind, it's like, it's the only example I can think of is going to be outdated. It's like in Rocky III when B.A. Baracus was ready to take over the title from Rocky because he had trained behind the scenes. No one saw it coming, but when he got his opportunity, he was ready for that fight.
All right.
There were several people that were like, is he talking about Creed? No. Talk about the predecessor. I started watching Creed 3 on the airplane the other night too, man. Who I gotta finish that jam.
You know me. I don't like, what movie is that?
Yeah.
I don't pay attention. All right. Miss Gonzalez. Miss Gonzalez is up asking, hello. We had PD this week specific to fine arts. It was about meditation and how to make your body work for you, posture, breathing, etc. I thought it was a good PD. And I think things in it were beneficial and necessary for students. However, I don't really know how I would fit it in due to time, but also I don't really feel qualified to teach those things. Any suggestions?
I would do it. So and look, this is like, I'll break it down for you. There are things every year that sound great in theory, but in practice, where am I fitting this in? Right? Gonzalez, I've seen your classroom, right? And although it's a great classroom, you and I have talked about like the logistics of actually getting around. You have 31 to 32 kids learning art, and not all of them even want to learn art. What if you start introducing yoga and breathing practices and all that stuff, and they don't want to learn that either? Now I can't even get to the art part because I lost you because we were doing yoga first, and now I can't even get to that. So I think that sometimes these professional developments come up and they are a really great idea in the ideal situation. But I would use those practices more for myself if you felt like they worked for you. And then when students are going through something, I'd have them in my pocket and ready to share it. So like my friend, Dr. Keisha, I did a video with her a little while ago where we were talking about like things like secondary trauma. And she walked everyone through this breathing practice that if you go and watch that video, it is worth just watching that section. It will transform you. Because one of the things she talked about is why is it important to have breathing practices when you are going through, when something horrible happens, when you're overexcited, when you're overextended, when you're in the middle of a horrible day of school. What is a very simple breathing practice that's going to bring you back? And she talks about this idea because she says when you are in that level of, and I forget what you call it, when you're in that level of like your brain is in this place where it's kind of frazzled and you're like, you cannot make rational decisions. Your brain won't let you. So we try to do that, but then we make mistakes. We do things that we shouldn't have done. And so by just simply learning how to control your breathing, you can bring yourself back to a state where now you can make a rational decision. And so I think those things are important, but I think they should be tools in the toolkit and not something that we're doing every single day in class with students or even every week with students, unless it's needed, right? Like unless you have a moment where you're like, you know what, y'all, we need to do a breathing exercise right now because we're a little too hyped. So here's what we're going to do. And we shift the lights and we shift the music and we shift the breathing, and then we can enter into the next thing that we're going to do. I think that's wonderful. But sometimes it's like, I don't know. It's like when we find out something that's great for you to do, just because exercise is good for you to do doesn't mean you should do it every single day, right? It's just like, it's finding a place for that in your class's rhythm to introduce that. And that's how I would do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you need one more, like, that's not what you were hired to do. You were hired to teach art. Teach art. And then if you need those, like, yeah, it's like in your back pocket.
Especially if the school can't walk you through how to do that. So it's like when schools
they're not creating the time for you to do that, to just put another thing on your plate. And that was my question
last year, right?
Crazy.
When they would say, we need you to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. And so many things were piled. And I remember asking at professional development, could you please show us like, I'm not even denying that we could do this, right? I'm entering into this with curiosity, like most things. I am curious, could someone show us a schedule where you are realistically getting all of these items done? Because I'm having a little bit of a hard time envisioning during school business hours, contracted hours, when I'm getting this done. Don't bank. Admin should not bank that I'm working on non-contracted hours. I can do that if I want to, but you shouldn't bank, right, on that. So in those 7.5 hours I'm required to be here, how am I getting all of these things finished? And if they can't do it, then we need to reassess.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, there's only so much capacity. And when we try and squish more in, even if it's more greatness, y'all know, like if you ever been to Disney World, we've taken our kids to Disney once, right? We went for like 5 days or something like that. And we realized the next time that we go, you have to build a break day in there, at least one. And if you're driving down, you should drive down break day, then rock some parks, break day, then rock some parks, because you need rest in there. Otherwise, you're squishing in so much fun that you're not having fun anymore.
Yeah.
It's like why am I arguing with you in the middle of the Magic Kingdom? Because it's 1 o'clock in the morning and we stayed at the late night and we all look like zombies and we're like, shut up, just get on the ride. Get on the ride, we're having fun.
That did not happen. We actually had a really great night when we did the late night.
We did.
But we slept in early and weren't at the gate.
Slept in late, came back to the place, took naps. It's important to build that in. Too much of anything is just like.
But I do want to say good for your school for having a PD that like the teachers themselves can learn some tactics and tools.
Yes,
so I think that's great.
Amen.
Okay. John Fox is asking,
Rocket.
have you known teachers who switched careers by pursuing a new master's degree while also working full time? How to make this work, or would you not recommend this approach?
John, I think it depends on, I've known people that have done that. And even myself, like I never went back for my master's because I started teaching late and then I had kids and then I started a business. And working and having a business and having children is very demanding. I think it can be done. I think you have to become a master of your calendar, one, and you have to know what your own limits and capacity are. So I know for me that I have a very rhythmic life that allows me to get most things done. I also know that there are times when I have to sprint, when I get less sleep, when I have more work, when I have no days off, when I don't get to take like a Sabbath, when I like this week, I didn't have date night because I was doing the boot camp. But I know that in advance and I know what my limits are. I know that feeling that comes to me when my body starts feeling a certain way and I'm like, all right, I know I need to rest. With the exception of I did get COVID. With the exception of COVID, other than that, I have not been sick in like 14 years. I think 13 years, not sick. Before that, there was a good decade before I was sick. And I accredit that mostly to when I start feeling that coming, I take steps I get a lot of sleep. When I start feeling myself like not feeling 100%, I get a lot of sleep. I will, whether it works or not, I digest a lot of vitamin C, these big, giant, disgusting chalk tablets. I take showers. I go to the sauna. I like sweat it out. I do things that are going to allow my body to heal. And so if you're thinking about doing a master's program, I think it's doable. But remember, there's only so much capacity. So that means it's going to have to take some from my school teaching capacity, right? Which is okay. But you're going to have to find ways to like delegate some of those things, to find hacks to getting grading done and things of that nature. And then I just find that if I have a very, very strict schedule, I heard the other day, there's a guy I was listening to that breaks his day into 15-minute segments, the whole day, and then sticks to it. And so you can fit a lot of stuff on your calendar if you sleep 8 hours and now you still have, whatever that 8 hours, like 24 minus 8, you have all that time left. Why am I not doing that math? Because I teach English and I can't think of it right now and it's weird. So you have all those hours left. If I divide them into 15-minute increments or even hour-long increments, I can get a whole lot more done in a day than I think I can because I'm being intentional with my time.
Sorry.
You got it. I see you over there commenting.
It's hard.
I thought I was going to bust out a song real quick.
No. Summer Hayward is up next, but we kind of answered this already, so I don't know if you want to go over it again.
I'm going to leave the icebreakers for the people in the crowd.
Well, she's asking what are good alternatives to beginning of the first year of high school, like alternatives. To be honest, it's your Life Odyssey, life map thing.
Life Odyssey
that's what you do.
Is the jam, and then I like jumping right into work. Summer, I'd rather do. I jump. So as soon as we are done the Life Odyssey, I jump right into the first book. And the reason I do that is because I want to start creating a rhythm. Here's what I would implore people to think about. you need to have a why for everything you do in your classroom. So if you're doing an icebreaker, it's really thinking about what's the why behind that. Why am I doing an icebreaker? I was looking at the wrong camera again. Sorry. So
I didn't change it.
if I need to know why I'm doing an icebreaker. And so if I'm creating an icebreaker so that students get to know one another, so they feel more familiar with themselves and with me, so that we can introduce fun into the classroom. I'm trying to do that in all of my lessons anyway. So if that's my goal, then I try to do that in my lessons right from the jump. So like by the second week of school, we are full tilt into the middle of an actual lesson. And then I'm going to have all these fun ideas and activities that are little mini things that we can do that we're going to start building that fun up, chipping away that ice, and creating a classroom community like from the jump. So that's kind of what I do.
It's interesting. You just completely like negate. You're just like, nope, we don't even do icebreakers.
No, I don't do like long syllabus reading and stuff like that. Like when Cho has a kids read her 12-page freaking syllabus.
I saw her syllabus one time. I was like, yo, that's so boring.
And she's like, hell no.
Of
course I do. That's of course what I do. She sounds like Randy the Macho Man Savage. She's just
I do love.
Of course that's what we do. Not playing.
Okay. I really hope I don't botch your name. Go ahead, help me out. Are we both on a loss? Nadula?
So here's the problem here. We are both undiagnosed dyslexics, and when there's too many vowels involved in any word, we're just like, we can't spell them.
I literally
I hate that. Like here's a quick teaching tip.
Wait, here's my favorite app. It's called Pronouns. And it's so easy. I don't even know if you can see that. You can't. Oh, now it's giving me a rating. It's so
not
simple.
Pronouns. Pronounce. There
you literally just put in any word, name, whatever, and then it'll help you pronounce it. I use it so often.
Robert Batch, that is an educational app that I would use.
Yes.
Because and really quick, I want to answer this question, but I just think it's so important. Not learning a student's real name. So the woman that's helping with us with our social media right now, her name looks like Gabrielle, but it's really Gabrielle. And she was talking about when she was growing up, we were asking her about it. And she said, it just hurt every time. Like teachers should know her name by now. She had a boyfriend once that said her name wrong all the time, called her Gabrielle. And so I just think that it is so important for kids, especially if they have a name that they know teachers are going to probably, there's a pretty good chance, like on your seating chart, phonetically spell that name out so that every day you keep trying to let that kid know that they are that important to you, that you want to get their name right. So there's a whole question we answered that didn't get asked, but
pronouns is like saves my life, and I use it a lot. All right,
let's hit this question.
Essie, I was so distracted with parent care the past 2 weeks that I missed the sign up for the boot camp. Took a year off for that purpose, but going back this year, am I able to sign up to view the replay? So
I think this is something we're going to create. Yes, because here's the first reason why. When we put out the boot camp, when I put out the trailer video on YouTube for the boot camp. So for those of you that don't know, tonight's the last night we did a back to school boot camp where we talked about, went super in depth on things like classroom management, student engagement was another night, building relationships. And tonight it is
self-care.
Tonight's self-care, delegating and boundaries, right? And man, it's going to be, I am excited about what we're talking about tonight. So, but it put down in July, and someone's comment was that he goes, I think his comment was literally, bro, I love you, and I know you're doing the Lord's work, but it's July. And so, but the thing is,
he's on the East Coast.
Yeah, if you're in the Southwest or down south, like I have buddies that are already in school. In Philly, we don't go back to school till after Labor Day. So I get it, but we were trying to get people on the front end to make sure that they were prepared. So yes, this week I have to get the videos ready and find a way that I'm going to be able to deliver them.
It's always figuring out the tech.
It's figuring out the tech. But by the end of this week, by Sunday Night Teacher Talk next week, I want to be able to have that stuff ready. If you need it before then, please hit me up. If anyone's interested in that, hit me up. And that all that's going to do is motivate me to focus on that even more to make sure that I can get it to you. Yeah. And even if school already started, even if you're a week or two in, this is something that I've created that is still going to bless you. We also have to come up with a price point because VIP folks had like group mentoring, they had live Q&A every night and stuff like that. So when we do this next package, it's going to be the videos. I also have a bonus video in there, and it's going to be resources for that for a different price point.
All right. Ashley is up next asking, I saw your video about how you teach vocabulary. Yep. I also teach 9th grade lit. How do you teach vocabulary that you find in a text versus literary items?
So, I can give you, man, this is a big question. We could probably do a whole workshop on this. I'll do a couple brief examples. So when I'm doing vocabulary, if I'm working on vocabulary that's in a book, right? So for me, it's literature. So if I'm reading Lord of the Flies, I'm reading Shakespeare, we're reading whatever it is, I am pulling words from that text. I used to do SAT words, but I found that it was so much more difficult because it didn't show up in the text. And so they were just like these words that kids were learning. And so I think that's still a good idea, but that's just what I chose not to do. I do 5 words a week, and then they build. Then the next week you get 5 more. The reason for that is I want to go really heavy, deep, and real on 5 words because I don't want kids to remember words for a week, and then the next week it's just like their brain just pooped them out. I want them to hold on to those things and really learn them and see them during the year and use them during the year and have them show up in journal entries and things like that. So we go super deep. So the way that I do that is, and this is the very simplified version of this, on Mondays, they get new words. I connect them with a sentence and I connect them to something that kids care about. My examples are always something kids care about, whether it's Marvel or manga or whatever I've learned about my students. I use that as an example. On Tuesday, we go over those words again in a number of different ways. But the exciting part of that is we do a quiz where kids have note cards on their desk with all the words and definitions on them. And we throw up different memes or GIFs that students have to figure out which word am I referring to based on the meme or GIF that's up there. This third thing I do is the most exciting day of the week. We do Music Wednesday, where students have to, we will play a music video, and you're either listening for something that's in the song or you are looking for something that's being acted out in the music video, and you have to pick that. And those are not always cool songs. I'm not sitting over here doing Drake and Lil Uzi and Lil Yachty and Lil everybody else. I am doing stuff that is, it could be, in the boot camp this week, I was talking about that Lamb Chop song, like this is the song that never ends. I could be doing Third Eye Blind. I could be doing Queen. I could be doing Slayer. I could be doing Naughty by Nature. It is all over the place, right? So I'm not just looking for cool jams. I'm looking for jams that work. But you'll be wildly surprised how many kids love that. I do not play the whole song. I play clips of songs so that just until a kid gets the answer, we stop the song, we move on to the next one. Thursdays, I'm going to forget. Oh, Thursdays were fill in the blank in the sentence. So we put a sentence up, and it's always sentences that are relevant to this year. It's the only work I have to do each week to redo the vocab. But it's I write sentences about kids in class, about things that happen in school that week, and the kids have to fit the word in. And that's entertaining also because kids love when they see their name, or they're like, oh, snap, that did happen at lunch when this thing happened, or someone slipped on some milk or whatever. And that's super fun. And then Fridays, we do an assessment every single Friday. That and I could go, gosh, I'm really holding back 1,000 extra things I do there. When I'm doing something that's in a book, so if I'm going over simile, metaphor, imagery, I try to create small learning experiences that are really going to help students understand what something is. So simile and metaphor, I call on music. I connect music that students like, or I connect music that students would know to simile and metaphor. When I do things like, like a soliloquy, I show clips from a movie where someone does a soliloquy. When I do a side for Shakespeare, I show kids clips from either Malcolm in the Middle or Saved by the Bell, right? So I'm constantly bringing in pop culture to show not just how Shakespeare did it, but how Shakespeare like was the example for all these other shows. So Bernie Mac has a soliloquy at the beginning of every Bernie Mac show. And so it's bringing in things like that kind of are going to make it come alive, but make it fun. Studies have been shown that if we can make things funny or fun for students, it helps them to remember them more. So if I'm doing an aside and I can connect it to not Daredevil, to Deadpool, kids are like, oh, snap. Oh, I know what that is. It's the Deadpool thing. And then that's one of the ways that we connect to those things.
All right, we're going to do 2 more questions.
Cool.
Silvio is asking, first year teacher here and was wondering how you incorporate technology into a 7th, 8th grade ELA class in college, university, English, lit major. We didn't do anything with tech.
So I think, Silvio, this is a great question. One of the ways that I think tech is often used wrong by teachers. I think it's used as a crutch instead of a tool. That I think that we rely too much on technology sometimes. So it's really about looking at your curriculum, looking at what your school's mission is, and figuring out in what way is technology going to make this better, not just make it different. So I don't just write. So like whether I'm looking at Google Docs, I'm looking at Chat GPT, I'm looking at so there's a reason that like I don't do is it Quizlet? There's a way that you can like basically make digital note cards on your phone or your tablet with students. And I don't do that. And I have kids make vocab note cards old school on 3x5 cards for a reason, because it works better for my class. I could do it another way. And sometimes when you're getting observed, people love when they're like, you're pulling in all this cool tech and stuff like that. But if it doesn't serve my students, or if it's not as good as something, like if it's not the best option, I don't do it. So it's really looking at some of the things that you're doing and figuring out that. Also, I think there is a misnomer that students are really good because they grew up with the internet. Our students are technologically advanced. And I'll tell you this, what our students are advanced at is swiping and tapping. They're not necessarily good at, like, students don't know how to make a Google Doc. Students don't know how to make Google Slides. Students, if you do know how to make a slide, they don't know how to change things. Or you ever see a kid that does a Google slide and instead of when their picture's small, when they bring it in, instead of pulling it from the corner, which makes it proportionately larger, they stretch it. And all of a sudden it's like, what the hell is this picture from? Like, why is this frog stretched out? Like they were made of Play-Doh. We just pulled them apart. I think that is difficult too. So when we are introducing technology, it's doing so without expectation that our students know. So if you want to use technology, it's also building in the time and the space and for students to grasp what we're doing. Because I think one of the other things that teachers make the mistake of is assuming kids like something, they know something, they're capable of something. And we have to go into the expectation that those abilities might be significantly lower. So I have to walk kids through. So we do a lot of Google Slide things over the year because it's easier, because they don't get lost, because it saves automatically, because it's easy to use, because you're going to be able to use it again and again and again and again in your life. I make Google Slides all the time for stuff. And so it is a life skill that I know my students need. So then I take the time to go through a dozen things that are going to make it easier for them to do that. And so just some of the stuff to kind of keep in mind as you're doing that. And look, Silvio, let me just say this real quick, because you're first year teacher. What we're talking about on here is going to give you 100 different ideas, right? And it can become very, very overwhelming. Look for a thing this year. Maybe look for 2 bits of technology that you can introduce. Because what you want to do is again, looking at your capacities, something we keep going back to today. And because you'd rather go into, I'm going to tell you this. There's a quote that I love that says, a prepared man is better than a prepared sermon. And so I'd say a prepared teacher is better than a prepared lesson. I'd rather go into school on a 10 and have a lesson plan that's a 6 than have vice versa, right? You got the best song in the world, but if your voice isn't ready, that song sucks. So it's really keep the bar fairly low for yourself this year so you can do great at the things that you're doing and then build on that over time instead of signing yourself up or taking on, we're going to do 7 different bits of technology this year. Like we're going to do all this crazy stuff. It's like, bring it down so that you can just do great at the stuff you're doing. And over time, you're going to build that up. And even over the year, like you'll be capable of stuff in May that you were never capable of in September. Got one more?
Yes, one more.
Do it.
Mr. Bolin is
Awesome.
asking, can you plug your mentorship more? Why should people do it when the podcast does an excellent job?
That's a great idea. So I don't talk about this very often, but we do one-on-one mentoring. This year, we're still figuring out the logistics, and we have a lot of things we're cleaning up now. We're going to start doing group mentoring. We're going to make that an experiment first. It's going to be like a beta group of a handful of people that won't be as expensive as one-to-one mentoring. So you can go on our website at realrapwithreynolds.com and sign up for mentoring. But I find this, we have almost 600 videos on YouTube that are free. Sunday Night Teacher Talk, free. The podcast, free, which is just Sunday Night Teacher Talk in podcast form, because I don't want people to have to use their Wi-Fi if they don't need to.
More to come on that, though.
Yes. There's a book that you can get for I think it's $17.95 right now on Amazon, our book, Teacher Class Off. There's all kinds of free stuff. What mentoring allows you to do is it's not just information, it's ease of use. And so what this does is you can come in, and I forget that gentleman's name that I had as a mentor, who had a list of questions that were very specific to his class. And we were able to knock out, and I think he had 4 sessions with me. We knocked out a mind-blowing amount of stuff where because now it's one-to-one. Now you're not looking through 600 videos, which is a lot. You're not looking through the book. You're not listening to we have 233 episodes. That's 233 hours of podcast material. What mentoring does for you is it helps you to get that one-on-one so that you can get things done faster. Malcolm Gladwell says that you need 10,000 hours to become a master at anything. And I think the way that you speed that up is by mentoring. And I've seen this in my own life. I could read a whole bunch of self-help books, or I could go to therapy. I could take a whole bunch of masterminds or go back to school for my MBA, or I could just get a one-on-one mentoring for business, which is something that I've done before. I could take masterminds. I could take classes. It just makes the learning curve it makes you learn so much faster. It takes the time down and gets you the answers you need so that it's immediately applicable the next day. But again, it's something that I don't talk about very often. And I don't know why. I think it's just when folks find it, when they need it, they get it. But mentoring is awesome. I love doing it. You get one-to-one phone call with me, and we talk about anything that you need in your class to make you teach your class off.
Yeah, it's specific to the person in front of you.
So thanks for the question. That's great. So look, gang, all that stuff exists. I just went through all of it. I don't even have to plug or let you know on to anything. Keep your eye out for the back to school boot camp replay that will hopefully come out this week, and we'll push that. Please shoot us an email, a DM, or a message if you think that that's something that would be of use to you. Anything else, love?
I don't think so. Not right now.
Cool. There was a lot coming up.
There's a lot.
We'll talk about it soon. And with that coded messaging, we'll see you next week, gang. Peace. Oh, it didn't work.
Oh, hi.
Damn, do it again. Ready?
What do I have to do?
Peace.